Okay, now we enter the world of retouch. And even though we're going to be working on a lot of old pictures, trying to bring them back to life, you're going to find that a lot of these retouch tools are also really helpful when you're shooting new images with a digital camera. So let's start with the kind of most old school tool for retouching, which is right here. This is the clone stamp tool, and you might want to memorize the shortcut, the letter S. There's a lot of tools that have replaced this tool or made this kind of cloning a lot easier, but once again, there's always a situation where you need the old tool, and this one goes way back. The way that this rubber stamp works, or clone stamp as it's now called, is that you pick up, and let me zoom in. You know, you really can't do retouch unless you're way zoomed into your picture, and this one is a mess. This would take a lot of work. The other thing before I start is that I'm going to, the panels that you really need to have open are your layers panel, your adjustment layers, which are going to be really useful, and then down here I have my history, which I probably will use quite a bit if I make any mistakes. But before I do that, I want to actually make a copy of the background. That way, if I want to go back, I could also take a snapshot in history, but I want to keep a permanent copy as a layer. So I'm going to just hold down Command J, and as you can see over here, I've now made a copy, and I'll start working off of that. The way that this clone stamp works is that you have to pick up a point first. I'm going to make my brush a little bigger by hitting the bracket key. And to create a pickup point, you hold down the Option key and see how the brush changes. So I go from a brush to a kind of target. And this will then, once I just make a single click, so I'm holding down Option, make a single click, and then I move over to the spot I want to cover up, and you can see that it's giving me a preview on how good the match is. Now, like any, the clone tool is actually like any brush, even though it doesn't look like a brush over here in the toolbox, it is a brush, and so therefore I can right click and adjust the hardness of the brush. I can adjust the diameter of the brush, and also very important, this is going to be really useful when we're working, is that the option bar also has the option to lower the opacity of how I'm cloning. So in other words, what gets laid down can be at 100%, or you can clone at a much lower opacity to kind of do a layering effect. Also remember that the flow of this, it means kind of like an airbrush, like if you want to just keep going over it, you can lower the flow. And really important, and this one messes people up quite a bit, is looking at where our sample is coming from. So where our target is. Right now it says current layer. If you have a whole bunch of pieces on different layers, then you might want all layers or current layer and below. So remember, before you ever start using any of these tools, really review that options bar up at the top. I find so many times people get frustrated, the tool's not working right, and it's almost always something up here. So what I'm going to do is I have a kind of medium hardness on that brush, so I'll have a feathered edge, and I might make this size just a tiny bit bigger. Brackets. Create my pickup point, and notice now I'm going to click and drag over this spot and see the crosshairs that are right below my circle. It moves with me, so as I move, it's picking up from a different point, which then gives you the variation you want. Otherwise it would just be a solid color. So there you have it. That's the old way, and I'll hold down the space bar and find a couple more spots here. Like here's a spot. Well, there's a million spots here. I could go crazy. Let me find a big one. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to reintroduce my pickup point, and then click. And notice in my history I'm recording every little click there, so be very careful. Of course, we're working on a copy layer. So let me show you some of the problems with the clone tool is that as I'm working, let's say, let me come up here by the sail. Okay, let's say I want to cover up this little spot right here. And so I hold down Option, and as I paint, do you notice that my pickup point is running into the sail? And so as I was cloning, I actually got a piece of the sail instead of the sky. So in this case, let me undo that. So I'm going back in history. You have to actually be very concerned about where your pickup point is. So I'm holding down Option, click, painting. And you just, as you're working, you want to be aware of where that pickup point is going. Like for example here, if I click Option and then start painting, one of the things I'm doing, if you see these little spots, is I'm picking up the spots. Now I'm picking up the object itself. So it's really important that you have a really clean spot to pick up from. So you could be somewhere totally different in the picture, but as you can see, I'm actually picking up, I don't know if you can see this on screen, but I picked up in here from down below in the picture, and it's actually a lighter part of the sky, so I'm getting a bad match there. So you do want to be fairly close to your source, so that you have the same lighting. So if I pick up over here, notice that the crosshairs are quite, oops, hold down Option. The crosshairs are quite close to where I'm picking up. And you can constantly be resetting, reset. So I'm holding down Option, reset my pickup point, holding down Option, now clicking and dragging, reset my pickup point, clicking and dragging. So basically with this clone tool, you want to be careful about where that crosshairs is, where the crosshairs are going, and what you're picking up, and if there's a good color match. And that is the most fundamental tool you can use when you're doing retouch. Now in the next video we're going to move on to some of the more automated retouch tools.